Hi, my name is Sean Olson, and this is a demonstration of using Wallworm to send your models, your level design, and textures into the source game engine. So we're going to start out here with a simple scene that I've used previously, and I have some added components in here. And what this whole scene is going to do is export models, world geometry, the textures on all of the models and world geometry. Also, we're going to render out a 3D sky into a 2D sky texture, and we're going to have a 3D skybox all exported here. And one of the things we're going to demonstrate here that's been in Wallworm for a while but many people didn't know about it is animated textures. Currently you can animate textures over time and scroll textures. Eventually I'll add rotation also. In this scene we have just 4 walls that are world geometry and a floor, and there's also a hidden box in the ceiling. And we also have some other layers that are hidden too. We also have a displacement here in the middle. The displacement has a blend texture with the brick and another. It's just a repeat of the cellular texture over here. We also have some lights in the scene. We have a sun, a daylight system, which is going to convert into a light environment. We have a teapot model, another teapot model, a sphere model. We have another box here. And we have this box over here, which is a model. This teapot is a prop physics. So let's hide our other layers. I'm going to bring out my layer manager. And I have a skybox layer here. And the skybox is what will become the 3D skybox. Alright, so this is outside the level, but will be shrunk down and export as a 3D skybox. The players can never get there unless they spectate and fly around. And then we also have this other level or layer, which is just a mountain scene. And we're going to just make a render of that and turn that into our skybox texture. So to start here, I'm going to go ahead and hide this layer again and go back to just our level here. And we're going to talk about the basics of exporting a level and setting things up as sky and other type of things. Most of your tools for those are in Anvil. Now, because Wallworm exports both models and world geometry, and they are completely different types of geometry, you have to tell the exporter which things are world geometry. And models are always controlled by Wallworm model tools, which there are plenty of videos explaining how to make those. But right now, I need to tell the exporter that all of these convex shapes on the edges and here, all of these things are world geometry. Let's unhide my sky top. I need to tell the exporter that these are world brush geometry. To do that, you open up Anvil, go to the Tags tab, and hit this Add. And it will add those as world geometry. I also want to point out that the geometry, func detail, and skybox tags are now macro scripts that you can add to keyboard presses by going to Customize, Customize User Interface, choosing Keyboard. From your drop-down menu for categories, choosing wallworm.com, and you'll find that there are set selection as brush, set selection as func detail, set selection as grouped func detail, and set selection as skybox items. If you do that, you can do keyboard shortcuts. So I'm adding these as world geometry. And I'm going to go ahead and just hide my sky top again so we can see here. So the next thing I want to point out is I have animated textures on here. 2 types of textures. This green cell over here is a sequence of images that animates over time to change. And these walls, these bricks, and this, and actually this, but you may not see it in here, are animated over time. Oh, there it goes. So these animations are going to translate into the game. The animations on here are again animated textures, and all of these over here that are moving are scrolling. Also, this displacement, the cells are animated too, but it doesn't always show up in the viewport because of the way the various current maps and the viewport settings work. So this is actually animated also. And we're going to export all of that into the game. So now we're going to export the textures. I'm going to show you these are animated. If I scrub the timeline in here, you're going to see a couple things. One, you're going to notice that the textures on the wall, the green textures on the left, are actually kind of morphing, And then some of these other textures over here are scrolling, okay? And that is something that I'm not going to go over in this video, but I'm pointing it out that we're going to export those in here, and this scene is going to be downloadable, and you can kind of go through the file and see how those things are done. So at this point, I want to export the brush textures. What I do in Wallworm for exporting brush textures, and I'm selecting this decal here also because it needs to be exported, is select any objects that have textures that you want to export. Some of these may be different materials, and that's why I'm selecting them. Go to Wallworm, Wallworm Exporters, Export Brush Texture. Now, at this point, you'll see checkboxes on any things that have not been exported yet. So it's telling you you need to export these. Also, I want to point out that if some of these are repeating, for example, the exact same material or the same VTFs, you should uncheck those so that they don't waste space exporting them again. So I'm going to get rid of these, and because they're up here also, uncheck those. It is a different material though. I'm going to uncheck this one because the same material and VTFs are listed here. I'm going to uncheck this one because Tools No Draw should not be exported. It's part of the core. And we want to, this is fine. That's making a blend texture preview. And it looks like some of these I've already exported, like this one right here. And you'll see that this is the path where the bitmap is going, and this is the path based off the material name where the material will be. We can change things like its surface properties. I'm going to put all of these as brick, and I'm going to leave it at that. And we're just going to export. And then if we run the exporter again, you'll see that none of these are checked except for the Tools No Draw because it knows we've already exported those. Actually, here's one that hasn't been exported. I must have failed to get that one. And we can go export all of the materials on models. It's the same kind of process, only you use the exporters export selected model textures, so I could select these helpers and export the textures. I'm going to skip that now. I have other videos showing all that kind of stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is tell the exporter, the 3D Skybox, what the 3D Skybox parts are. So I'm actually going to hide all of the things in my scene except for the Skybox. And there's a hidden top to it. And remember, even your Skybox needs to be sealed in. So I want to select all of these objects, every single one, because these are part of my 3D Skybox. Okay, these will be shrunk down. So we open up Anvil, we go to the tags, and we set that we want these as sky and brush. They're going to be sky objects that are also brush. So now those objects are going to seal in the map and be Skybox objects. So they're going to be shrunk down, and where they're located in the actual VMF is determined by this sky cam. If I click this, it's now selected. If I hit Z on the keyboard, I'm going to be on that selected on it. However, it got created in a layer that's hidden, so I'm going to move the sky camera over to my 3D Skybox layer so it will not be hidden anymore. So if I hit Get Sky Camera and select it, hit Z, here's the sky helper. And it's way off on the side. Wherever that object is where the sky camera will be, and all of your geometry here will be wrapped around here in the right place. You can move that around, however, you have to make sure it's always on the grid. Alright? So as long as it's way off somewhere on the grid, it should be fine as long as it's outside the bounds of your level. At this point, when we export the map, this will be shrunk down and put over there. You don't have to worry about ever shrinking it down. You can keep on working on it at all times. And during your compiles, etc., and keep on working at the right scale. That's all we got to do for that. I'm going to hide the skybox layer, and now I'm going to open up my sky scene. Now the sky scene is real simple here. It's just some mountains, and I want it such that these are what appears in the sky itself. So this is where we use Skywriter. You open up Wallworm, Skywriter. We're going to create a new Skywriter sky, and I'm going to call this My Sky 1. My Sky 1. And we're going to create the sky, and it will appear there at 000 on the scene. And again, this one got created in a hidden layer. Whatever the currently selected layer is where it's at. So I'm going to select that object and move it to my sky scene layer so it's not hidden. So now if I hit Z, I'll zoom in on it. And the way this works is we need to render the sky. Wherever this object is, that is the view from which the sky will be rendered. So I'm going to move this up some. Right around there. And I'm going to go ahead and tell this that I want a tiny bottom to reserve space, and we'll keep it at that. So at this point we need to render our sky, and I'll let it render, and I'm going to skip to the end of the render here. Alright, so now it's done rendering, and since it's done rendering, I can then at any point compile. I have to compile these for them to appear in game, so I click that, and we'll have a sky in source. And the sky's name is going to be My Sky 1. Now when we come to export the scene, the VMF exporter will have a drop-down list listing all the skies that are in your scene, the Skywriter skies. So this is My Sky 1. It's in here as a Skywriter, and I can choose that. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the exporting the models and the model textures because I already have videos explaining that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and unhide our default layers. Hide the skybox layer. Oop. And unhide all of these. And now that we have this all here, I'm going to go ahead and export this. Alright, so to export our scene, we go to Wallworm, Wallworm Exporters, export scene as VMF. At this point, you can do several things. You can choose options for the way the exporter works, the BSP stuff, Viz, RAD. You can type them in, or you can use these drop-down menus to pre-populate this. You can control the scaling of your environment lights and colors and your default lights and light maps and all that via these menus. And there's more controls, and I'll have to write more docs in those later. Change the detail, VSP, and sprite settings, the fade distances. And one of the really cool things is you can tell it to automatically pack in your final BSP all of the assets, which are the textures, the models. All of those will be packed into the BSP when you export and compile with this function. Now for this to work, you have to compile with this function or compile with the batch file that's made later. If you compile through Hammer, then you're not going to see these packed into your BSP. And I want to briefly point out that I've added a couple convexity point entities that are player spawns for Counter-Strike Source. Those will appear in the game. And if I create a camera view and make it my active camera view, which I'll do right here by pressing Control-C, it makes a camera with this view. It will make that as the default view in Hammer when I look at the scene. I'm going to save this and go ahead and export this now as a VMF. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it and compile. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause this. So it finished compiling, and notice that at the end of the compile, it went ahead and packed all of the assets, my models and textures. They're all packed into the BSP. So I'm going to open the scene here in Hammer, and you'll see that we have all of our models in here, our textures. And all the animation will happen when we go into the game. So I just wanted to show you this briefly. Also, let's point out that the Skybox, which was hidden, all layers that are hidden in Max come into here as hidden. So if I unhide the Skybox layer and zoom out and take my camera way off over here to the side, you'll see that this is the miniature Skybox that we made that will appear in the game. Here's our sky camera. And the neat thing about that is we don't have to rescale this. If we decide to make changes to the layout of the map and the map itself, and then I want to redo the Skybox, there's no rescaling. I just build it all in scale in Max all at once. And every time you export it, it will be shrunk down and put over here on the side wherever you put the Sky Helper. You'll see in here we'll have all of our animated textures. We'll have our sky with the mountains and the sun, and that sun is because it was rendered out with mental ray sky. It's at a certain angle, and the angle of that sky was brought down in the lights. You see the shadows come from that sun automatically. We have animated textures over here. We have scrolling textures over here. We have a model that's spinning. It's not actually spinning, but its textures make it look that way. We have this scrolling texture. And we have decals. You can learn more about those in more of the other videos. We have the 3D Skybox right here outside the bounds of this map. And in reality, it's miniaturized. So if I fly out here, way out here, to wherever it was, it's going to take me a while to get there. But that's our little 3D Skybox, and we didn't have to shrink it out. Wallworm will automatically shrink it and place it way out here in the middle of no man's land when you go to export. So again, we have all these different elements, the textures, the models, the Skybox, the 3D Skybox, the sky textures, all exported directly from Max into Source. And of course we have this prop physics here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can switch to a team here and knock it down for you so you can see. Knock it down, and there we go. Prop physics. All of those done directly inside of Max. Now I didn't go into details of how these textures were made, how this prop physics was made, and there's all kinds of other features like gibs, etc., which I'm not going to touch on right now. But those are all things you can do directly inside of 3ds Max with Wallworm. So you can use this file as an example and learn from it and try to learn all the techniques like the animated textures and such. Again, my name is Sean Olson. You can learn more about me at my website, seanolson.net, and you can always get the latest version of Wallworm at wallworm.com. Please feel free to give me a thumbs up on Facebook, on any of the pages you like with my tools, and also feel free to share a donation for all the time and effort going into making these tools and sharing the docs and videos. Thank you. Have a good day.